He was moments away from losing billions, until a poor waitress walked in and exposed a secret that could destroy everything. But what if she was hiding a bigger secret of her own? Stay with me. This story will shake you to the core. Before we begin this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss any of our powerful, life-changing content. Like and share the channel to help us reach more hearts around the world. This is more than just storytelling. Every tale we share carries a deep moral lesson designed to inspire, uplift, and transform. He was about to lose billions for not knowing how to speak German, until the poor waitress appeared. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. The German contract was right in front of me. Pages and pages of opportunity, or disaster. I had no idea what any of it meant. I was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech firms in New York. But in that moment, I felt powerless. I had spent years building this empire. Coding in basements, sleeping in cars, pitching to silent rooms. Now, a multi-billion-dollar deal with a German conglomerate stood before me. And I was one signature away from either wealth beyond belief, or complete collapse. The legal team was delayed. The translator I hired backed out last minute. And the German executives were watching me. Waiting. A single mistake in that contract. And I would lose everything. Panic swallowed me whole. I looked at the clock. 27 minutes until the meeting. I walked out of the glass boardroom, breathing heavily, heart racing. I needed help. Desperately. The nearest cafe across the street was empty, except for one waitress. She was young. Wearing a worn apron, curly brown hair tucked under a cap. She looked up from mopping the floor and smiled. "Are you all right, sir?" Her voice was gentle. Something about her tone, it grounded me. I need help, I said, surprising myself. I do not understand German. And I am about to lose everything. She blinked. Then stepped closer. "My name is Lena," she said. "I am fluent. Show me the documents." I hesitated. She was a waitress. But I was out of options. I opened the PDF. She studied it like a surgeon examining an X-ray. Her eyes moved fast. And then she began to speak. Not just translating. Explaining. Explaining loopholes I would never have noticed. Dangerous clauses hidden in polite language. And buried traps that could have cost me equity, patents, control. My jaw dropped. "Who are you?" I asked. "I studied business law," she said. "My mother got sick. I had to leave school. Been working here ever since." The clock struck 10. I stood before the German board again. But this time, I knew what I was saying. I rejected 3 clauses. Negotiated 2 more. Signed the deal. I walked out not just with billions secured, but with something more precious than money. I returned to the cafe. She was still there, wiping down tables. I held out a business card. She refused it. "I did not do it for a job," she said. "Then why?" I asked. She smiled. "Because no one helped my father when he needed it most. I could not let another good man fall." That night, I could not sleep. Not because of the money, but because of her. Her voice. Her clarity. Her strength. A few weeks later, I returned. But she was gone. No one knew where she went. I spent months searching. I even flew to Germany, hoping to find a record of her name. Nothing. Until one day, at a small university seminar in Munich, I heard a familiar voice in the hallway. I froze. That voice. Calm, clear, slightly accented. It reached into my memory and yanked me back to that cafe. I stepped into the hallway. And there she was. Lena. Standing before a class of eager young students. Gesturing toward a whiteboard filled with business terms, in German. She looked radiant. Not in the polished way of corporate elites, but in the effortless strength of someone who had rebuilt herself from ashes. She turned and saw me. Her hand dropped slightly. Our eyes locked. For a moment, time did not move. I took a step forward. "So," I said softly, "you do exist." Her smile was slow, careful, almost uncertain. "You found me," she whispered. I nodded. I never stopped looking. The seminar ended. Students filed out. She stayed behind. I sat across from her in that quiet room. Sunlight pouring through tall windows. "I owe you more than money," I began. "You changed the course of my life." And then vanished. "I had to," she said. "I needed to find myself again." I listened. She told me how, after that day, something in her awakened. She applied for scholarships. Wrote essays late into the night after long shifts. She was accepted to a university in Munich. Graduated top of her class. Now lectured part-time. And volunteered at shelters teaching migrant women how to read contracts. "I realized," she said, "helping others saved me." Her words hit deep. I had measured my life in numbers. Quarterly growth. Investor returns. IPO valuations. But in her eyes, I saw a different kind of wealth. A quiet, radiant purpose. "I do not want to make you uncomfortable," I said carefully. "But I came here with more than gratitude." She looked down, hands clasped, breath caught. "I do not just want to repay you with a job, Lena. I want you to stand beside me. Not behind. Not beneath. Beside." The room fell silent. "I do not need saving," she replied, voice steady. "I know," I said. "That is exactly why I came." She blinked, as if trying to see through my chest. And then she laughed. A soft, tired, joyful laugh. "I teach young women to recognize sincerity," she said. "And you pass barely." I smiled. We walked through the streets of Munich that night. Snow falling in quiet flakes around us. We talked of old fears, new dreams, unfinished wounds. She told me about her father, how he died with pride but without protection. I told her about the lonely nights in boardrooms full of people. We understood each other without trying. And just as we crossed a quiet bridge, she stopped. "Do you still have that contract?" she asked. I laughed. "Framed in my office." She took my hand. "Then let us draft a new one. One without loopholes. One built on truth." And in that moment, not the billions, not the company, not the power, but her fingers in mine. That was my greatest fortune. But life had more in store. Just 2 weeks later, as we flew back to New York, hand in hand, we were met by an emergency boardroom meeting. And sitting across that long polished table was the man who once tried to sabotage the deal, now holding a document in his hand, smiling like he had won. He slid the document across the table. His eyes gleamed with quiet malice. "I believe," he said slowly, "this clause gives us the right to acquire controlling interest, effective immediately." I stared at it. Cold. Precise. Legally sound. My heart sank. The clause was in German. And I had missed it. It had been buried in the appendix. Added after the final round of signatures. Through a strategic amendment I had overlooked during the closing rush. I clenched my fists. Betrayal burned hot in my chest. This man, David Langston, had once been my trusted advisor. Now he sat across from me, calm, smug, surrounded by his legal entourage. Lena leaned in. Her brow furrowed. She scanned the paper quickly, lips moving silently as she read. Then she looked at me. And her eyes. They did not carry fear. They carried fire. "This clause is enforceable," she whispered, "but it is based on an earlier version of the deal." She stood up, alone in a room full of suits and silence. "Under German contract law," she began, voice steady, "any amendment introduced after final consent without formal bilingual disclosure and mutual notarization violates full disclosure principles." David blinked. "What are you talking about?" he said, suddenly nervous. Lena walked to the center of the room. She pointed at the amendment. This version was emailed after hours. No legal timestamp. No cross-acknowledgement. That alone invalidates its enforceability. She turned to me. "You signed a clean version, Daniel. You are still the majority holder." Gasps filled the room. David's expression cracked. You are bluffing. I am not, Lena replied coolly. But feel free to test it in court. The German embassy will gladly confirm. The boardroom descended into chaos. Lawyers whispered. Phones buzzed. David stood, papers falling from his hands. He stormed out without another word. I turned to Lena, stunned. She had just saved my company, again. But this time, in front of everyone. The boardroom, once filled with doubt, now looked at her with admiration. She is our new head of global legal strategy, I announced. No one objected. That night, in the elevator to the top floor of our headquarters, I watched her reflection in the glass. Calm. Focused. Unshaken. You were incredible, I said. She smiled faintly. You built an empire. I just kept the wolves out. I stepped closer. No, Lena, you are the reason it still stands. As the doors opened, I walked her into the penthouse office. The one I had once dreamed of as a boy with holes in his shoes. She stepped to the window, looking out over the skyline. Then whispered, Do you know why I helped you that day? I shook my head. She turned. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Because you reminded me of my father. And I was not strong enough to save him. But maybe I was strong enough to save you. My heart broke. And healed. In the same breath. I reached for her hand. But just then, a sharp knock echoed through the office. The door opened. A young woman rushed in, holding a phone. Sir, you need to see this. She handed it to me. It was a news alert. One that would shake the very foundation of our company. A massive German tech leak. Corporate espionage. And at the center of it, a name I never expected to see. Lena's name. Right there on the screen. I stared at it, unblinking, as the blood drained from my face. German tech insider linked to global legal sabotage scheme. Lena Kohler under investigation. My hand tightened around the phone. No, I muttered. This cannot be. Lena stepped closer. What is it? I turned the screen toward her. For a moment, she said nothing. Then her lips parted. She took the phone, read the headline twice, and slowly sat down. Not in fear, but in sorrow. I was afraid this would happen, she said. I could barely speak. Tell me it is false. She met my eyes. It is not what you think. My world tilted. The woman who saved me, twice. Now under suspicion for global sabotage? She looked out the window, gathering strength. Years ago, she began, before I dropped out of law school. I interned at Zorn Tech. The name hit me like a punch. Zorn Tech. The same German firm whose alliance now held up half of my empire. She continued. They trained me, trusted me. But I discovered they were stealing innovation patents from small startups, silencing whistleblowers. I tried to report it. No one listened. So I leaked internal memos anonymously. My heart pounded. You. She nodded. They never proved it. But now, someone wants to silence me. Ruin me. Silence settled like a fog. I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. My instinct screamed. But my heart whispered something else. Trust her. Believe her. I took a deep breath. They are coming for you, Lena. I know. But they will have to go through me. She looked at me, stunned. I will not let them rewrite your truth. Not while I am standing. Her voice cracked. No one has ever stood for me, Daniel. Not like this. I walked to her, knelt, held her hand. We do not run, I said. We fight. Together. But before I could say another word, the office lights dimmed. My assistant rushed in, breathless. Sir, we have a problem. What now? The German Federal Police, they are here. They want to speak to Lena. Lena stood up. No panic. No fear. Just resolve. She looked at me. If I go now, it will be headlines. Cameras. Damage. Then we control the story, I said. I picked up my phone. Call the press, I told my assistant. We are holding a press conference in 1 hour.
Are you sure? Lena whispered. I nodded.
Your truth deserves a microphone, not a cell. She smiled through the tears.
Then whispered.
Then let the world hear it. But just as we were about to leave, my private line buzzed.
An encrypted call.
Only one man had access to that line.
My father.
The man who disappeared from my life 20 years ago. I answered.
His voice was cold.
Do not go to that press conference.
Why?
Because Lena is not who you think she is. And if you speak, you will lose everything.
The room went still.
I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. What did you just say?
I asked.
His voice came through like ice over steel.
She is not innocent, Daniel.
She is not who she claims to be.
I looked at Lena.
She stood by the window, unaware of the voice on the line. Adjusting her coat, preparing to walk into a storm of cameras and questions.
She saved my company, I said, heart pounding. She saved me.
My father's reply came with no hesitation. She played you. Just like she played everyone else. I stepped out of the room, closing the door behind me. You vanished from my life without explanation, I hissed. And now you expect me to believe you over her?
I left to protect you, he said.
And if you go through with this press conference, they will not just arrest her. They will come for you.
For what? There was a pause.
Then his voice dropped to a whisper.
Because she used your name, your account,
your access credentials, and transferred classified research to a private server registered in Luxembourg.
My stomach flipped.
That is impossible. I have the logs. Check your internal security feed from 5 weeks ago.
Night shift.
Level 4 access terminal in Zurich. Only 2 people were in the building.
I swallowed.
That could have been anyone.
It was her.
He ended the call. I stood frozen in the hallway. Mind racing. I opened my encrypted internal server.
Typed in the access path. Found the log. 2 names. Mine. And hers.
My hands trembled as I clicked the surveillance footage.
The screen flickered to life.
The timestamp read 2:43 a.m.
And there,
walking through the glass corridor,
was Lena. Alone. Her face calm. Her badge used.
My ID code entered.
The transfer made.
I felt the air leave my lungs.
The door behind me creaked open. Lena stepped out. You are pale, she said softly. What happened? I turned the phone toward her.
Paused the footage at the exact frame. Her hand resting on the terminal.
She looked at the screen. Her face changed.
But not to fear.
To pain. Real pain. She stepped back. You looked, she whispered.
You were not supposed to look.
My throat tightened.
Tell me this is not what it seems. She turned to the window, back facing me. And after a long silence,
she said,
I was trying to protect you. But to do that, I had to become the villain first. I stared at her back, every part of me aching to believe. Aching to not believe what I had just seen.
What does that mean, Lena?
My voice cracked as I stepped closer. You hacked into my system. You used my credentials. You lied to me. She turned around slowly. Her eyes were glassy. Her shoulders sagged with a weight I could not see.
I was approached, she said quietly.
Long before I ever met you at that cafe.
By who?
By Zorntech. My chest burned at the name. They found me when I was broken, alone. They offered to pay for my education in Munich. Help me rebuild my life, if I worked for them. If I passed along confidential information when asked. I shook my head, stepping back, my world splintering. So this was all part of the plan? Helping me, the contract, the boardroom? It was all staged.
No, she cried, voice trembling. Not that part. That was real. You were real.
Then why not tell me the truth? Because they threatened my family. My mother is still sick, Daniel. She lives in a remote village in Austria. They said if I backed out, if I exposed them, they would make her disappear.
Her voice broke.
I wanted to scream,
To collapse. To believe her. To run from her.
I was trying to find a way out, she whispered.
Out of them. Out of this nightmare.
That file transfer, it was bait.
I blinked. What? I planted false research.
Encrypted code.
Dummy blueprints.
Meant to expose their network the moment they accessed it.
She walked toward me now. No fear. Just raw truth.
I risked everything to turn on them. But I knew they would come for me. That is why I ran. That is why I stayed hidden, until you found me. Tears slid down her cheeks now. I never meant for you to get caught in this. I was trying to end something,
not destroy someone.
I stared at her, every heartbeat screaming with conflict. Was she lying? Or was she the bravest woman I had ever met?
The door burst open again.
My assistant rushed in, pale, shaking. Sir, the press is here. And the German embassy just issued a statement. The server in Luxembourg was accessed. But the files were corrupted. It triggered an internal breach within Zorntech. Half their board has resigned. Interpol is involved.
Lena gasped.
They opened the file. I turned to her slowly.
She looked as stunned as I was. And then,
a vibration from my phone.
A message. Unknown sender.
She played a dangerous game.
But she won.
Walk into that press room, and you will lose her forever.
My hands clenched. Lena looked at me.
Fear flickered in her eyes. What is it?
I looked up and whispered.
Someone still wants you silenced.
I looked at Lena. Not the hacker. Not the informant.
Not the woman caught between worlds. But the human being. Brave, fragile, and standing alone on a battlefield far bigger than both of us. She waited for my answer.
The press was still downstairs.
The embassy was watching. Interpol was watching. The world was watching.
And I had a choice to make. To protect myself.
Or to protect the truth. I reached out and took her hand.
You do not have to run anymore, I said.
I believe you. Not because of the story. But because when the world gave you nothing, you still chose to save someone else.
She broke.
Tears fell freely.
No shame. Only release.
We walked into the press room together. Dozens of cameras flashed. Lena stood by my side as I faced the crowd. And I told them everything.
Her role. Her risk. Her sacrifice.
How she could have walked away. But instead, she walked toward danger to end a system of corruption.
The world listened. Some with skepticism.
Some with admiration. But none could ignore the courage it took to stand there. Days later, Interpol confirmed the full extent of the Zorntech operation. Whistleblower protection was granted to Lena. She was cleared. Not just legally, but in the court of public opinion. She now lectures globally on ethical tech, truth in law, and courage in leadership.
And me?
I no longer lead the company from the top of a skyscraper. I lead it from the center.
With Lena at my side. As co-founders.
As partners. As two people who chose honesty over fear.
And I learned
that success is not measured by how much we gain, but by what we are willing to risk to protect what is right.
Moral lesson.
Sometimes, the truth demands sacrifice. It may shatter comfort, invite judgment, or threaten what we love most. But in choosing truth over fear, we become more than survivors. We become the reason someone else can breathe freely again. Do not fear the shadows of your past. If your heart walks in light, it will always lead you home. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know. You are never alone.